Welcome back to TarHillIllustrated.com, or if you're watching this on our rapidly growing YouTube channel, that's Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THL staff writer Brandon P. Joining me today from the Smith Center in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, is our very own publisher, Mr. Andrew Jones. And AJ, we just saw North Carolina get a second consecutive win, defeating the Citadel 100-67. The Tar Heels had a very good game. They were led by Armando Bacot, who had 14 points, 11 rebounds. Pete Nance has 16 points, 7 assists. They finally got a big game out of Caleb Love, who had 17 points and 6 rebounds. But the thing that I noticed most, AJ, is just the ball movement, the body movement. The ball was popping around on the perimeter. Everybody, it was like hot potato. Nobody wanted to hold on to the ball. It ended up in Carolina shooting 49% from the field, and they had their best three-point shooting. So what did you think about the ball movement today?
Yeah, hot potato in a good way. Sometimes there's guys in basketball that play hot potato because they don't want the ball. Let me adjust this camera a little bit. They don't want the ball, but they were finding guys. Tyler Nickel had 16. Caleb had 6 assists. And I had a really good conversation with Tyler Nickel about Caleb. And also Caleb said some interesting stuff about Tyler. We'll get into that. We talk about the bench. But I agree with you. Even though it was 26-25 at one point, I didn't think there was really anything to worry about. The Citadel they had some open looks. Every once in a while they were getting to the rim, but it just kind of looked like Carolina was eventually going to go on a run and pull away, and they did. They closed the half 22-8. But I thought the offense was good early. They were aware of each other. They were certainly determined to get the ball into Armando. That is what this team must do. Armando said it the other day. We're at our best when we go through me. I should take the most shots. And he's right. He should take the most shots. Sure. They got to run everything through him because you see what else opens up when they do that. I thought it was really interesting tonight that Caleb, his ball time, if you were to add up the number of seconds each time he touched the ball and whatever the accumulative was, I know he didn't play like the last 8 minutes or something like that, but up to that point was far less than in that 4-game losing streak. I think this team is starting to identify some things. And one of them is RJ needs to be on the ball when he's in the game. Seth, when he's in the game, he always should be on the ball. And RJ move over to the 2 or Caleb stay at the 2. Nothing against what Caleb does at the 1. I just think Caleb is a better scorer when he's more coming off the ball, when he's not on the ball. He's a really good catch and shoot guy. He had a 3 tonight from an offensive rebound where he stepped into it. He's really good at that. And that's the stuff that's going to get him going. Now, I don't mind the ball being in his hands. I'm sure Hubert doesn't mind sometimes either because he's so good at creating. And I thought he did a pretty good job tonight getting in there. A couple of times he missed an open guy, but I thought that Caleb's game, being connected with everybody else and then and being determined to go through Armando, is what this team needs to be if they're going to compete for the national championship. I really believe, and I mean this, we talked about this the other night, that when we're in late February, early March, and we're doing one of these after a game, people are going to be able to look back at this stretch and see that they learned a lot from that losing streak. They got humbled. It was a big cord cutting, all that kind of junk. And I think they saw all the things that don't work. And Caleb said tonight, and people should listen to Caleb because to me, his approach is the most important approach on the team. And he said tonight, look, we learned from some things, but a big point of this is that we understand that it's the big picture. We have to do things right now in order to be ready to do them right all the time when the big picture point of the season is here. And I think that's really important because I'm not so sure this team really had its traction with respect to the big picture a couple of weeks ago. They thought they had it. They were thinking put another banner up. They were thinking redemption. They were thinking championship or bust. They talked about it for months and months and months. But now I think they have a much better understanding of what that takes. And we saw that offensively against Georgia Tech. We saw that offensively today. You noted the assist. Their previous high was 17 in a game, had 24 today. They blew by that. They got a lot of contributions from a lot of guys, in part because the recognition was at a high level. Recognition is that guy's open. I see him, and I'm going to get him the ball. And it's also about movement. If the ball is stuck over here, when they were in Indiana or when they were in Portland, or even at times at Virginia Tech, we would see everybody standing there waiting for the guy with the ball to do something. Now the options are opened up because of movement, because they're using the ball screens more now than they were, but they're not so reliant on those ball screens because you have good movement. If you have really good movement, good cutters, good awareness, and you're capable of connecting those passes to the guys that are open, you don't need to set a crap load of ball screens. You don't have to. And I think that this team getting good looks earlier in possessions, the good to great that they talk about, RJ talks about it all the time, Brandon, pass up a good shot to get a great shot. We saw that a lot today. So I think 26-25 was fine because there were a lot of good things going on. They stepped it up a little bit defensively. The Citadel hit one more three I wouldn't say the rest of the game, but up to the point when I started writing my stuff, which was about 8 minutes left. They were 1 for their next 9 from 3, and that's when Carolina opened up. So I do think offensive focus, offensive intensity, offensive awareness did usually transfer over to the other end and onto the glass as well.
Yeah. Earlier when you were talking, you mentioned the big picture, and another area that's important for UNC in the big picture is its bench production. And today the bench had its best game so far of the season. A lot of guys who don't have a lot of experience in the college game got a chance to get their feet wet, get some confidence. So what do you think of the Carolina's bench production?
Well, we could hit on 4 guys for sure. I mean, Jalen Washington, he's the 5 when he's down there because he's got great length, and you can already see some instincts. He got a chance to get a sweat going today. You could see some instincts down there, and it's just a matter of time when he gets in and faces some different competition and gets into the routine of being a college player who's playing, watching film, and learning from film. He's going to be really good. There's no doubt about that. But right now, Seth Trimble is really good at everything except shooting the basketball. Yeah. That's something that will come. In fact, Trey Scott and I were watching him specifically right on this baseline over here during warmups, and the shot doesn't look bad. You know, somebody in the program told us last week, said, Seth actually shoots the ball better than what his reputation is. It's just, it eventually has to translate to warm-up shooting and then game shooting. That'll come. But I don't think they're too worried about that right now because he can play defense. He was defending in the paint a couple times better than some of the big guys did today. He can get strips. He can get into the open court. He finds guys. And even when he leaves his feet, the last couple of games, it appears that he has a better idea of what he's doing when he leaves his feet than he did earlier in the year. Tyler Nickel, the guys have a ton of confidence in him, and you need to watch Caleb's video because I had to double check on this. And I asked him about Tyler. He said, Tyler's got the most confidence of anybody on the team. And I said, more than you? Because Caleb is the epitome of confidence. Remember last year, Brady Manick told us, yeah, we know if Caleb misses 19 shots in a row, we know the 20th is going in, and so does he. Yeah. That's kind of Caleb's confidence, but he said Tyler's off the charts. And I think what was really interesting that I enjoyed tonight, and I think Carolina fans should go back and watch the film of this, Tyler's first 6 shots, 4 of them came off passes from Caleb. Caleb was talking up Tyler in the preseason. I remember talking to Caleb for a while in Charlotte, and he kept talking about T-Nick, man. And like, he can stroke. He's got game. He's got some moxie and all that kind of stuff. And they just look comfortable out there together. And one of the times, Caleb passed up a good shot for himself to get Tyler one. He missed. He was 1 for his first 5, but he was 4 for his last 5. And he hit those big threes in the second half. When I say big threes for him, it's the first time at college he's kind of felt like he's gotten into a really good rhythm. And that's very important moving forward. I really like what Dontrez Styles did. I can't forget him, obviously. Dontrez hadn't scored all year. He's a guy that more people ask me about him than anybody else on the roster. And my whole thing is, look, I've heard he's just not super skilled yet. Still got to work on his skills. Well, his shot is not something, especially that mid-range. That was pretty. That one in the baseline over here in the second half, that's a pretty shot. Yeah, that 3 he hit against Baylor in overtime last year in the tournament, that was right in front of me. It was a pretty shot. So I think the shot's there. It's a lot of the other stuff that might not quite be there yet. But, man, he brings energy. He got a really long offensive rebound tonight. He kept the ball alive on the defensive end, and Carolina ended up grabbing that one as well. He's an active dude. He should be a good defender. And I thought it was interesting. There was a pretty healthy stretch before it was mop-up time when he and Nickel were on the court together. And the big question on Press Row, who's going to be the 4? Because I know the staff thinks that there's a chance that Tyler could be a 4 one day because they think he's still growing. So Dontrez was the 4. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and he handled it pretty well. So getting performances like that from those guys, regardless of the competition, was something this team needed. They needed a blowout win. They needed to get those guys out there and just break a good sweat and play basketball. They needed the starters on the bench going nuts for them, and they did. In fact, when that last three went through and they got to 100 points, everyone wants biscuits, but the team, the players were having such a good time watching those dudes do that. And this was a kind of feel-good win this club needed, where they got two really good, important games coming up. They've got to get some resume wins outside the league. They have two more non-conference games left, and they're both very, very big. And I think that what they've done Saturday and today are performances that are trending them in the right direction as they go to play Ohio State and then Michigan. So getting the bench involved is good. And Hubert, of course, is going to say, hey, see, I played the bench. And he played 10 guys in the first half. Yeah. And he was checking dudes in at the 14 plus mark, at the 13 plus mark. So, and they performed. So I'm sure that they earn more time. Remember, Tyler Nickel earned time the way he played in the last 10 minutes at Virginia Tech. Yeah. And he's played 6 minutes. He played 6 minutes in the first half against Georgia Tech. He played 7 minutes in the first half today. So Hubert is rewarding for gameplay. People say that he doesn't, but there's an example that he has. So if this continues, and this is an 8, 9, 10-man type team as we get into January and into February, I think this club has a chance to be really good, because if you can trim 5 minutes a game from the starters, then they don't take breaks on the court at times, which they admitted sometimes that they do, that they have done in the past, because it's anybody would. You get dog tired out there. You got to be able to pace yourself at times. This way, I think they can go a little bit harder, a little faster. They can have a little bit more vitality on the floor at all times.
Yeah, yeah. AJ, I think the most encouraging thing for the Tar Heels is the fact that Saturday they came out, they played their best game, and then a couple of days later they come back on Tuesday and they play an even better game than they played on Saturday. And I know, like Roy Williams would say, North Carolina was just simply more gifted, but I think the way they played, at least offensively tonight, that works against anybody in college basketball. So these last two things, I'm actually going to lump these two things together. So North Carolina finally put two good performances together back to back. What does this mean for the team overall in the bigger picture?
Well, I think what's important, and I hit on it a little bit earlier, is they have got to be focused on the moment and getting better, with the understanding of what that does down the road. I don't believe that was happening through the first 9 games, but they've done it the last 2 games. And maybe they needed those first 9 games to shake them so hard that they had to understand, okay, all that crap ain't happening again. You know, we're not rekindling the New Orleans flame, because it's not there to be rekindled. It doesn't exist anymore. It's passe, it's in the books, chapters, done, right? Yep. So I think that what they've done the last 2 games is they've focused on them. They know that there's all these boxes that have to be checked that they must get better at. There's if there's 5 boxes for each thing, they had to check some of them for the first time. And maybe they checked a couple more tonight for the second time. They know they have to keep checking them in order to become the team that they believe that they should be. But I think the understanding that you're just not going to be anointed that team. You're just not going to be placed into the Final Four without having to do much of anything. I don't think that those kids believe that anymore. I'm not saying they did before, but sometimes the obvious is right in front of you, but sometimes it's the hardest thing to see. Yeah. And it was pretty easy for the media and for fans to say, why aren't they playing better? Why aren't they focused? Where's their energy? These guys aren't trying. I think that they were trying. I just don't think the minds were collectively right. I think the minds are far more collectively right now than they were when I last saw them on the road in Blacksburg, you know, before when they last lost a game. I thought they did some good things late in that game. Maybe that was some of them becoming what they are right now. But the big picture is something that they have to be focused on. But I love the fact that they're focused on the now. And Hubert's been saying that all along, but it wasn't connecting as much. But they needed to be humbled. I mean, Caleb said, look, we've got to get better. Coming to a game like this, we have to do this, 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 and this, and we're going to win. And it doesn't matter as much who they're playing. Dean Smith's teams often didn't prepare for opponents because he knew, look, if we play the way we're supposed to play, we're going to win. And where did Hubert cut his teeth? Learning from Dean before he learned from guys like Pat Riley and Don Nelson and Van Gundy, and then he learned from Roy. So there is something about approaching things that way. When you have enough talent, it's about you. And I think these last two games, it's about them. I think when they go up and play Ohio State Saturday in Madison Square Garden, it's got to be about them. Can't be about Ohio State because they're more talented, they're deeper, they're better when they're playing their game. Now that'll be challenged, certainly, because they're going to get a lot of pushback, a lot more resistance from the Buckeyes than they got from the Yellow Jackets or the Bulldogs. But that's good. I think now they need to test that "it's about us" thing Saturday at Madison Square Garden, and then next Wednesday against Michigan and Charlotte before they're off for a little bit of time with Christmas and everything else. So I think that's what this means. It's going to take a while. They're not there. They're not a finished product yet. Armando said that. Caleb said that. Hubert said that. And that's right. 2 games doesn't make you a finished product, but you can't become a finished product until you have those 2 games. And then it becomes 3, and then it becomes 4 and 5 and so on. And then maybe by late January, if they continue to do this, then we might start talking about them being close to being a finished product. It's going to take that much time, but that's okay because they have that much time to become the team that they can be and should be.
Yep. Well, AJ, I think that's an excellent place to stop. Again, North Carolina with a 100-67 win over the Citadel. The Tar Heels will be back in action on Saturday in Madison Square Garden in New York City. AJ will be there in person, and we'll be there after the game to talk about it. We'll see you then. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.